Hello again, my beloved listener watchers. We are back with another YouTube episode slash podcast episode, and I'm excited today because I want to talk about a topic that I don't think I've spoken about quite this way ever before on the podcast, and certainly not on YouTube. And it's come up a few different ways for me over the past few days, and I've been thinking it through, and I want to dive in because it's a way that we're punishing ourselves that we shouldn't be, that we don't need to. And I want to hopefully create some space to alleviate that feeling. So, first, I want to say that you don't actually lack discipline. You're just trying to create from a body that is truly, completely depleted. I had a conversation recently, as I was sharing, that was with one of my corporate clients. She is brilliant, she's accomplished, and deeply creative in her day job. And she's been carrying this big creative vision for years. She knows exactly what she wants to create. She knows what it looks like. She can describe it to you in vivid detail. But when it comes time to actually sit down and work on it, her body shuts down. And I'm sure some of you can relate to this because I hear versions of this all the time from women who want to write or build or create or shift in their careers to something that feels more meaningful in the world. So the women that I work with are in extremely high pressure roles. They have a lot of responsibility, the standards are real, and they have a lot of pride attached to the work that they do. They're just not willing to do mediocre work, even if this isn't the role that they want to live in forever. So they're holding a lot of gratitude. They're attached to the professional identity and also the obligation. And at the same time, there's this deep desire to create something new. And that, of course, creates shame because wanting more can feel like ingratitude, right? It can feel like, don't I have it good enough already? But when they finally have the space to create, they want to disappear. My client was literally telling me that, she gets into the moment after work, the weekend time where she has finally, you know what it's like. You get home, you kick off them shoes, probably taking off that bra, girl. You know what time it is. And she just wants to turn off the lights and lay down. She wants to breathe. She wants to take the moment that she finally has after giving so much at such a high level in her job day to day. She just wants to come back into her body, right? Fighting these fires, dealing with these folks in these corporate spaces or whatever the pressures of your work are looking like. And then on top of that, there's still like the basic necessities of life. You still got groceries to get. You still got laundry to wash. You still have relationships to maintain. Trying to create some balance in your life requires quite a few logistics, and then having a little bit of a social moment somewhere so that you're not isolating yourself like Quasimodo and up in a tower somewhere. And the next thing you know, it's Monday again. I know y'all feel me. So the problem really isn't the time. You'll notice in what I've just been sharing that it's not that my client doesn't actually have time. She has nights, she has weekends. It's not the time, it's the conditions that need to change. And so that's the thing I want to implore each of you to take a look at in what it is that you're dealing with. I talk a lot about dreams. I talk a lot about vision. I talk a lot about moving toward the work and the life that you want to build. But if you don't even have the capacity to sit down or to take a 30-minute walk or to spend 15 minutes, not even a day, a week with your creative idea, we're skipping a major step here. You can't solve for this dream, even though the dream is so important. And I love talking about creating dream space for ourselves. I do. But you cannot solve for the dream from the same place you produce from for your job. I'm going to say that again. You can't solve for your dream from the same place you produce from for your job. That place is pressure. Pressure and creativity have an inverse relationship, okay? At least in this regard, this kind of pressure that has depleted you. So the reason I say this is because, at least from my personal experience and from the stories that I hear, again, I've worked with now hundreds of women. Our bodies seem to be kind of trained to produce under pressure, right? So there is this experience of high levels of cortisol. There is that adrenaline push. I know I have been an adrenaline junkie, okay, where you need that hit. And that's what's getting you through this day job that is wrecking your soul because your hormones are here to the rescue. They are pushing you through and creating a sense of urgency to produce. And that works really well for execution. Sometimes we need that. These things exist within us for a purpose. Howsoever, the creation that you are yearning for, it comes from someplace else. It comes from what I like to think of as like your internal light. It comes from where you're lit up. And if your light is dimmed, if people are trying to extinguish it day to day, what are you creating from? Right? Where are you getting the source material from? So it's a little bit unfair to place that pressure on ourselves to make that leap when we have to really focus on our light. So I also wanted to speak about discipline because inevitably there's someone who is listening or watching right now who is like, girl, I know what the issue is. It's not this light thing or whatever we're talking about here. It's the fact that I just need to get my discipline up. Discipline has gotten me to and through many things in my life. I know how to lock in when it's time to lock in, and this is just one of those things. This is my next level of locking in. I've just got to do it. I've just got to figure it out. I get very reactive to the term discipline. It's actually kind of a triggering word for me because of the way that it's used. I think we treat discipline as if it's a character trait instead of a habit. And it's a habit that is built under specific conditions. Like when you think about any kind of discipline that is occurring in your life, right? Most people don't just decide one day to be disciplined. They had environments, they had people, they had mentors, they had a coach, they had, and this could be like your athletic coach, when you was running track or playing on the basketball team or doing volleyball or whatever it was that you were doing, that taught you, that created the conditions around you, that reinforced rhythms. These are just habits. Consistency is made possible by external influences. Something has conditioned you. And it might be, when I talk about environments, it could be also a lack of support, right? That made a discipline an imperative in your life. When sometimes it's like, well, I wasn't getting some basic needs met here from these people that I wanted to depend on to take care of me or to provide this kind of structure for me or whatever. And so very early on in my life, it became my environment or in the lack of support that I had made it critical for me to establish certain rhythms, certain patterns, certain habits, okay? So I just don't want us to continue telling ourselves or telling exhausted women all over the world with these narratives that like, just be more disciplined, because she'll just keep producing until she breaks. That's what we'll do. And I don't want that for us. I don't want that for myself. I don't want that for my daughter. I don't want that for anyone, honestly, okay? So let's talk about that missing element, because I believe that there is a space between, like a middle point, between burnout and your next creative chapter. First is recognizing, acknowledging the fact that you were at that place. As a quick sort of related tangent here regarding burnout, most of us will not acknowledge the fact that we are burnt out because for us, the bar for tired is a hospital bed. For most of us, the bar for exhausted is being laid up somewhere, actually hitting the wall, being brought to the brink, okay, of crossing over into the afterlife. That's what we are waiting for before we will say, oh, I'm tired. If you have a drop, a kernel of energy left inside your bones. And this is so common for women. I think this is super duper common for women of color. I see this all the time for those of you who are children of immigrants, where we have a hard time acknowledging the pain that we're experiencing within ourselves because we have maybe examples like for someone who maybe my parents were refugees. Not personal parents were, but if that was your experience, right? I'm not going to say that this cushy corporate job is causing me to burn out when you literally risked everything and had to toil through insurmountable odds and figured out how to do it and raise a whole family and never complained and just kept pushing. And to this day, you ain't stopped. Like, who am I? Who am I to complain? But I do want you then to ask yourself, okay, well then what is your line? If today is not your line, today where you can see you literally have no access to your creative self, the thing that you want most, you don't actually have access to it because you don't have the capacity for it. Because as I said, your light has been so dimmed by operating in these spaces that teach you to continue to suppress, and to push and produce for everybody else, right? What is your line? At what point will you say, oh, yeah, is it the hospital bed? Is it a scary diagnosis, like a really scary one? Not the one where it's just like, oh yeah, girl, some of your blood work came back and it's looking a little, things could be better. Things are looking, and the way that our healthcare system is set up, these doctors will let you, they're going to send you home 9 times out of 10, and it's not always their fault because you're not dying. They're like, I need to free up this hospital bed for business purposes, not necessarily of their choosing, but of a mandate from whatever system that they work in, or because they have a bunch of people that have inundated the system and that are sitting out in the ER, in the emergency room, waiting to get care. And it's just like, I got to get to the people who are about to, you know what I mean? Where it's real, it's go time right now. So if you're not there, you got to go. Okay. So I just want us to treat ourselves with a little more clarity and the same compassion that you might have for your parents or your grandparents, the folks who raised you, who got it out the mud, the folks in your community that you're looking to and saying, well, I have it so much better than them. Who am I to complain? Is that what you would say to any of them if they had the opportunity to finally rest, to take up space, to build out their creative dream, to make their mark on the world, to do the thing that is calling to them from almost a spiritual place? Is that the language you're going to use with them? Will that be your attitude? Likely not. Okay. So again, this middle space, there is a middle space between burnout, which we have to acknowledge. I'm going to get off that high horse in a minute, but we have to acknowledge it, as I said. And that next creative chapter, we have to address the middle space next. Okay. We can't just expect ourselves to jump. And what I think is in that middle space is restoration. We have to give ourselves time to restore. If what your life is showing you, because we have to look at our life and the behaviors that we are currently exhibiting as the data. We have to look at it as this is what I have that is real, that is occurring, that is present, that is now. And what is happening now is I crash at the end of my days or at the end of my weeks, and I turn off all the lights, or when I have a chance to go on a vacation and it's in my mind, like I'm going to do a little writing while I'm there. And it's like, girl, I cannot look at a pencil. I cannot look at a paper. I cannot look at a laptop. I cannot get it away. I'm going to lay up on this beach and I want nothing from nobody. I don't want nobody want nothing from me. I have nothing to give. If that is the pattern, if that is the behavior, that is the data you have, then you got to stop telling yourself, come on, girl, just saddle up and get to work. No, it means that your body needs restoration. There's a need that needs to be met. Okay. Rest is not a reward that you get after you create. It's the requirement before you do. So what are the conditions for your creativity, right? What are these needs? Well, I said, number one, it is rest. It's hard to feel lit up when you are absolutely exhausted, when you are depleted, and you need your light. You need your light. What else are we creating from? I'd say number two then is relationships, because I believe that creativity dies in isolation. And this doesn't mean that like everybody has a very different creative process. Everybody has a different interest level and or tolerance for the social aspect of, building and creating. Some folks are like, I just need to go and be alone and have my time to think. But at some point, you're going to touch other people in your creative process and just in your general environment as a human, right? So at least two things here. One, if you are that person who is like, girl, when I'm in a creative zone or like when I'm in my creation building process, I know I need absolute isolation. I need silence. I need everybody to go away. I need it for a long period of time. That's cool. Usually you need something before or after that moment that involves people. And it may be a conversation. It also might be, if you're one of those people that, and I can be like this sometimes, just depending on what it is I'm working on, that I don't want you in my process, but I love a parallel moment. I love that you're in your process and you're sitting over there. Maybe we go to the coffee shop together at the same time, or we go sit at the park at the same time, and you're not in my shit and I'm not in yours, but we're both creating. And that there's a synergistic, it's so corporate of me to say, there's some synergy that exists between us because we're both like in the mode alongside each other. Sometimes it's like, I don't want to talk to nobody before, during, but after, a little debrief helps. I kind of want to bounce myself off of, and there might be only specific people, that I need in my world to do that. But I just think that us assessing for where those people need to be, when and how, actually studying ourselves and seeing what works for me, what feels really good, and then designing against that. It's like, okay, well, how do I make that happen for myself? For me, I oftentimes like people in my process, not at every single stage of it, but I like to be in an environment, which is again why I say this all the time in the content that I share, that I love masterminds. It's why I love a mastermind group, honey, because we're all asking similar questions. We're all on similar paths. And for me, that kind of inquiry, that kind of energy, it creates movement. And if you're like me and you are lacking this, again, maybe it's not about how disciplined or undisciplined you are. Maybe you just don't have the right people around you. You don't have the kinds of relationships that would actually support your process. And that's what you need to solve for after rest. Lastly, think about the environments that brighten your flame. And I say this like in a really generalized way. Like, do you know that, for instance, going to the beach, I hear this all the time. This is super common, like being near a body of water. Honestly, my husband, this is like a huge thing for him. He has learned at this point when he needs to process through different things, he's got different ideas for the work that he's doing, or he's just trying to like come to some personal conclusions for himself, he's gonna find some water. Like when he has like a me time day, he's getting to that beach if he can. If he can't get to the beach, he's going to the park that is nearby that has a little lake. If they got a little pond, a little puddle, he's trying to get near that water because he treats it like it's his medicine, okay? And because it does something for you. And I think that we all have some kind of, this is my little woo-woo, you get into it. Get into it, okay? Just get into it. This is my little woo-woo take, but I just think, I've been thinking of Captain Planet, Sun, Air, Moon. What is it? I don't forget I forget how it goes, but you know what I'm getting to, right? Do you need water? Do you need air? For me, the like being in a forested place with the like hearing the rustling of leaves, very few things calm my soul like that. Very few things center me like that. And the air is just a little bit crisp, but not too cold. You're kind of cozy. There's sun, but like it's not overwhelming. It's a certain quality to the light that's coming through the leaves. And then you can just hear nature. That does a lot for me. I also, especially at night, I love to sit near a fire. There's something about air and fire that it does it for me. I love a beach. I love the water. I do. But it's like those things when it comes to like centering and hearing myself. And yeah, that's an environment that brightens my flame. So it's up to you to prioritize that for yourself, to identify that, pay attention to what are the elements? What is the terrain? And it might not even be like an external place. Like if I was thinking about constructed environments, we'll call them, I like to be in places that feel, like a combination sometimes of like luxe and bohemian, like kind of like there's like a there's a vibe that comes from some other country somewhere that makes me feel like transported, but also, a little fancy, a little cute. And again, it depends on what it is that I'm working on and what like need I'm trying to fulfill at that point in time. But the point is that these things are not luxuries. The environments that we place ourselves in, these are not just nice to haves. These are nutrients. This is what nourishes you. Pay attention and respond accordingly. Prioritize this. Make it your homework to get to, for me, I love a fire pit. And it's just a part of like any experience that I have. If I have the option of what hotel I'm going to choose, I'm going to find one that has little fire pits. What room I'm going to choose. Is there a room near the fire pits? Is there a package that comes with the s'mores and the fire pits? Right? Figure those things out for yourself, and these can be completely free, right? Accessing some water somewhere, getting in the sunshine. Maybe it's just you want to be in the sun and rolling around the grass like a little kid. Prioritize it, build it into your rhythms, and that's partially how I think we establish what air quote the way discipline is spoken about. I think that's how we actually establish it in a sustainable and like non-shameful, non-hierarchical way, where we have to divide people up into who's got it and who don't. That's not the truth, y'all. So you may still be in a role that feels heavy, right? Like your 9 to 5, your day job, or whatever that work is in your life. Like if you just kind of feel like the thing that I spend the most time with, where I'm contributing to, and whether that is working in the home full time, I don't create a lot of space for that. I haven't historically in my content here, but like the same holds true. That that is some of the realest work anybody can ever do. Okay. And I know you're doing it well. I know you're giving it your all. That's a lot. And if it starts to feel like I'm starting to want to reach for the next thing, the question isn't, how do I get out faster? How do I get away? It's how do I burn brighter first while I'm here? Because you want to get into a knowing of yourself, of the conditions that light you up, of the conditions that give back to you, so that you are refueled, that you are nourished, that you have you, so that you can create from that place, wherever you're going in the future, whatever it is that you want to build. And I also just want to make a note that this is very much connected to your relationship to pleasure, right? Because if I ask you that question about the relationships, who you want to be around, how you want to be around people, where you want to be around them, I asked you about the environments, what you need, even rest, like what are the conditions around rest? A lot of that has to do with pleasure, and you embracing pleasure as a priority in your life, and you wanting to make space for, acknowledge it, look at what is pleasing to you, and give it to yourself. Not make that something, one more thing that you need to earn with your efforts and how much you give to other people or how much you sacrifice for other people. Pleasure is also a birthright of ours. It exists to motivate us and to inspire us and to connect us in so many different ways. So make sure that you are creating some room for that in your life, that's a part that can be central. One of the things I was telling my clients was that in this work of shifting from this really pressurized moment, this really pressurized area of her life that has been such a drag on her energy, that I want her to begin to notice wherever the urge to create pressure comes up, even around this creative pursuit, where it's just like, I got to get it done fast. I've got to make it big. It's got to be perfect. When we start to recognize that feeling in our body, because you can recognize when pressure is rising within you, right? That's that adrenaline, what that feels like. Just paying attention to it for the first time, maybe noticing, oh, I think I'm doing that thing again. I'm applying pressure. Let me apply pleasure. So this is the work that I do with women inside of my coaching containers. And it's about not pushing harder towards the dream, but just rebuilding those conditions, y'all, to make the creation possible, make the creative pursuit possible, but really to make the creative you possible. And if you want to learn more about the work that I do, head to Monique R. Shields, follow me on Instagram. and all the things. And if you are on YouTube, check out my podcast, Admission Without Compromise, where this episode will be hosted if you like to have like just an audio experience. But there's many other topics that I cover there in this kind of more long form, a little more structured format. And from my podcast girlies, if you want to come and play with me, Kiki, on YouTube, I highly encourage you to, because I'm having a good old time over there. I'm singing, I'm cutting up, I'm in my bedroom, I'm in my closet, I'm all over the place. And it's been this really beautiful creative pursuit for me in this season of getting to know a different side of myself and really responding to the creative call for me to feel a certain way as I am putting out into the world what I'm putting out into the world, and just, yeah, being responsive and respectful of that, respectful of what it is that I need and making it happen. So thank you all as always. I hope that this episode has served, and I will talk to you next time.